All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Psychic Perspectives. My name is Carol Geiler. I'm a medium and spiritual messenger. My lovely Sarah Camp here, my co-host from
Hello.
Astral Maids Paranormal Services, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you consider yourself a medium and a paranormal worker, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So, we want to make sure that you stay tuned today. We've got a show on psychic functioning and why it's not just for psychics. So, we're really going to talk a little bit about practical applications and uses for this. And we're going to talk about the four avenues of use. We're going to talk about the three major psychic modalities, and then we're going to include some practical applications that are in kind of the real world, not just how we use it for ourselves. So stay tuned. We've got a packed show. All right. So, the reason I wanted to do this show, and thank you for letting me pick this topic, is because I know you and I talk a lot about we recognize that psychic abilities or intuition or spiritual connections, whatever you want to call it, are more than just about sitting down and giving a reading to another person, right? We tend to think of psychics and intuitives as those kind of people. Oh, well, you're someone that gives a reading, but it has so many different other applications. And I think it's super important that we use it for ourselves. So that's really the reason that I wanted to talk about it. I want to get people thinking that it's more than just sitting down and doing readings. Does that make sense where I'm going with that?
Absolutely. Like, how does it apply into my life? How can I use this on an everyday basis versus quitting my day job and turning into a tarot reader, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Because people think of it that way. Oh, well, you're predicting futures, or you're reading cards, or you're talking to spirits, and I don't have any interest in that, so I don't want to be psychic. Missing
right.
the point. That's kind of where I wanted to go with the episode today. So let's talk about the four avenues of use. And I was trying to figure out a way to categorize these, and we just got done talking about it. So there's two ways to do it, obviously, or four ways. But the first one is we do it for ourselves or we do it
Right.
for others. So the obviously we're talking about that psychic, right? Or that medium, that person like myself who hangs up their sign and says, yes, you can come to me for a session and I will use my abilities to assist you in a particular way, depending on what my skills are. So we use them for others. But as we just got done mentioning, then the second avenue of use, which really should be the first one, is for ourselves. I mean,
Right.
how often in your daily life are you using your awareness to help you?
The better question would be, when are you not? And
Exactly. Thank you for making my point. When are you
yeah,
not? It's all
right.
day long. It's constantly being connected. Well, where do you find that a lot of your awareness kicks in? I mean, how does it help you? Can you give some examples in your daily life of
Mostly, mostly energetically, I would say, where I'm kind of feeling out what's in my space. I have a lot of awareness of what's in my space because of what I do. I
Mhm.
have to be aware of anything that might have followed me from some other case, or, it's kind of like a high alert. I'm like on high alert a lot. Um, but that would be number one. Number two would just be, I don't know, regular guidance and talking to your angels and guides, and
Mhm.
I guess making sure you're on the right path and doing the things that uh, bring you joy and happiness, etc.
Absolutely.
Um,
That's perfect. That's a great example. Yeah.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
didn't think
So
about assessing your environment because I'm not as energetic as you, but that's super important. And a lot of people, especially if they're empathic, assessing the environment is very, very important.
mhm,
So having that awareness for yourself so that you know what to do about it. I mean, are you
right.
using that when you're assessing your environment, how you can shift things if necessary? Once you make that assessment, I assume you're responding to that in some way.
Absolutely. So I guess the kind of the way that I work is I have a very extended energetic shield.
Mhm.
Um, and so it kind of acts like a booby trap when things hit that space or come into that. Um, field. And so I get like kind of like a physical notification, like on your phone when you get a notification.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way of putting it. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of get like, oh, hello, there's something that needs your attention. And then depending on the feeling that I get with it or what's going on at that time will kind of determine the action that's taken. Mm-hmm. So it could be nothing, but it could be something that needs to be addressed.
Right. So you're right. And then, and like you said, the personal growth and the guidance, I think that's the biggest one for me. It's like, what do I need to be doing? What's the next step? What do I do in my creativity process? What do I need to do to grow, to expand? Is this food good for me? So I think the biggest part, of course, is using it for ourselves, for our own personal growth and awareness. You gave a great example that I wouldn't have thought of. And then if we want to apply that to others, we can. And I think that we should, but that leads me to the other two avenues of use, which I call overt and covert. That actually came up in a session with a client this past week. And overt means that it's obvious. Again, I'm an example of obvious, right? I put it out there. It's in the surface. I'm announcing to people that this is where the information is coming from. I mean, not always. I mean, there are times when I move into what we call the covert. And a lot of people want to use theirs in a very covert way. And this was the case in the session that I had done last week, was her preference would be to use it covertly. And she asked a wonderful question. She goes, well, how do I do that? And what does it mean? Well, we're still doing it the exact same way. We're just delivering it different, right? So if it's covert, let's say, for example, I'm in a grocery store and I'm talking to the clerk, and all of a sudden I get the sense that they've gone through a loss recently or something has happened. I don't need to say, hey, I'm a medium and blah, 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 but I may have more sensitivity towards what's going on in that person's life. Maybe I get inspired to just give them a smile or a comforting word. There's nothing that's announcing that I'm getting awareness about the situation. It's the delivery that changes. It's how I handle it that changes it. And so if you're working in the health community, like let's say another example is a nurse, right? Nurses sometimes have a very intrinsic understanding of what their patients need. They don't need to announce where that's coming from. They may have this deep intuitive connection or even a physical connection, right? We were talking earlier about having that physical connection. It's just cueing them in on what they need to do in order to be of better service. So this is what I mean by this very covert, subtle in the background. And I think a majority of people will probably fall into that category more than the overt category.
I agree.
So am I explaining those two differently? And where do you feel you fall in those categories? Kind of in the middle for you, aren't you?
I am kind of in the middle. I don't like to, for instance, go into grocery stores and blurt out things.
I don't either. That was just an example. Right.
Yes. I am not one of those people.
Me either. Yeah.
In fact, I would be hard pressed to even find a situation where that happened. But I think it's kind of these everyday things that we chalk up to nothing as like, it's just a hunch or, like with the nurse, for example. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, you've explained to me these were your symptoms. And now I kind of have a hunch, based off of what information you've given me and what I'm feeling that I know. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. So it kind of gives you like an educated intuitive response. Does that make sense?
It gives you a leg up. It gives you that extra sense of awareness. Something tells me this, my patient's going to crash today, or they're going to go through a tough time, or I'm just feeling like something's going to be wrong. And then the next thing you know, you're checking on your patient more than you normally would. And then sure enough, something happens and you go, wow, I'm so glad I listened, because if I hadn't been checking up on them, I might have missed that.
Right.
That's really important to listen to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is kind of an applicable way. I've gotten that before when Trey was really little. It was like, you need to go check on Trey. And I was like, huh.
Yeah. For those who don't know, that's her son. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, huh.
Exactly.
Should I listen to this little weird hint of intuition. And I was like, yeah. So I just like got up. I went, I looked, he was in the bathroom with scissors, and I don't remember what he was cutting. Oh no, maybe it was a razor. I can't remember, but it was something that he shouldn't have that was mildly dangerous. That I was like, wow, I'm really glad that I just got up and listened to that weird voice that just came into my head, because something bad could have happened. It didn't, thank God. And so here we are. And
that's a great example of why it's important to pay attention to it for yourself, right? I mean, it's like, I mean, that had direct benefit to you and obviously to someone else in that regard. So we can kind of see how these different avenues of use can all blend together. And maybe you're going to be one of those people who's going to use it in a very subtle way in the background, you know, and you're going to be using it for others to kind of clue you in. But you might find, and this happens to a friend of mine as well, where someone will come up to you and say, I don't know why, I just feel like I can share this with you. And the next thing you know is they're going to share an experience, or they're going to share an ability that they may have. And then you're able to become a little more obvious or a little more overt with what you can do as well. And then the next thing you know, you have this bonding moment or this dialogue where you've come out a little bit and you've allowed that person to come out. So I guess my point here is that it's a spectrum. It's always for you. It's always for other people, both. And how you handle it doesn't have to be psychic. I just don't announce it to people. I mean, I do in terms of my work, but when I'm out in public, I don't talk about it.
Yeah, no, same here.
I just don't talk about it.
I think our small interactions with people on the daily are good examples of that. There was a guy the other day that was just like not having a good day, and I could tell. And I was just like, as nice as possible, you know, hopefully crack a joke, make him smile. I mean, those kinds of things can go a really long way. And
absolutely,
you know, I worked in customer service, so I know how it goes too. It's like people can make or break your day. But you don't have to announce, like I didn't have to announce the fact that I'm like, oh, I can tell you're having a bad day, buddy, you know? Just don't be a dick, you know?
Right. So those are those, because small kindnesses really do matter. But again, I think sometimes too, it's like, I try to stay somewhat connected. I'm not reading people. And I think that's another thing that's really clear. I'm not out there reading people, but if I get hit with something that I know that maybe I'm just feeling like we should be talking about that person's health today, I'll just start up a general conversation, not knowing why I need to go there. Maybe that's what that person wanted to talk about today. Maybe that's what's stressing that person. So I kind of personally trust spirit when I'm in my interactions with people on a day-to-day basis, that if I need to go somewhere or know something that will help my interaction with that person, help them, then I'm going to do that. That is not the same as reading them. I do not read people without their permission. And I think I want to be clear about that. We all get hit with impressions because people are putting off energy, right?
Yeah.
Just like that guy having a bad day. You weren't reading him intentionally. He hit you with something. And people go, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that. Well, we walk around and we don't walk around with our eyes closed because
I'm sorry. Yeah. There was nothing really psychic about the fact that I read that he was having a bad day. He was very outwardly having a bad day.
All right. Okay.
So it
well, you were using that as an example. So I thought that was the case.
Yeah. There's some information that you can't help but receive. And I think some of that just has to do with the mixing of the aura.
Absolutely. That's right. That is an accident. That's not an intentional, you know, you're not intentionally reading someone. There's a big difference there.
Right. So there's a big difference between just feeling it and then like digging into it and trying to get more information.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to make that clear because I know that sometimes people are like, well, you're going to be reading me all the time. No, I'm really not. If something hits me in the face, if you're wearing a bright pink sweater and I'm walking past you, I'm going to see it.
Right.
It's obvious.
Yeah.
Right. So if something hits me because I'm sensitive or I'm aware, I'm going to notice it, but I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not going to dig into it. I'm not going to analyze it. I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to go, okay, and move on.
Right.
So, big difference.
Well, and I think you get certain things on purpose. Like, like spirit's only going to give you what you need to know.
Exactly. That's my example that I was saying, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, if spirit says, hey, do this, I didn't get it from the person that's sitting across from me. I got it from spirit. That's kind of giving me a clue that maybe in this moment, I can be helpful.
Exactly.
And here's how, but I'm not reading that person. So just in case somebody comes up and says, oh, but you shouldn't do that because you're reading someone, I think that there's a lot of nuances to that. Ethically, you're absolutely correct. We should not be spying on someone, right?
Right. Or like
staring at someone,
digging more into it when you weren't asked or you didn't need to.
If you're looking for the information, which versus it floating to you, you don't have to pursue it though. So anyway, so those are basically the 4 avenues of use, because so many people think it needs to be overt and it's about others. And honestly, I think that's the fraction of people that you see, but it's like the tip of the iceberg. You see people like myself who are overt and using it for others, but the real part of the iceberg is under the water, right? It is for ourselves. It is for the benefit of others, but it is done in this very subtle and under the surface way. It simply is an enhancing of our awareness. So
it's so subtle that people don't even realize that that's what they're doing.
I completely agree. And I think if we want to become aware of it, that's great, because I think we can deepen that connection, deepen that service, deepen the way that we help people if we become aware of it. But I do completely believe that you're right, that sometimes people are just doing it and not even identifying it as some sense of awareness of what needs to take place. Yeah, very good point. So let's move into, now that we've discussed the avenues of use, I want to talk about the modalities. And we were kind of debating a little bit what modalities was defined as. And I'm not talking about the way we receive the information as in your intuitive senses, right? I'm not talking about seeing, feeling, none of that kind of stuff. What I'm talking about with modalities is the way that you use your abilities. There's a particular way that we use them, okay? And so I'm going to talk about the 3 modalities. And of course, the first one is going to be, let's just talk about psychic, right? Because that's where we have a connection with people, places, objects, nature. It's about information and time. And so it's just this, we've been giving perfect examples of psychic information where if you run across someone and you're getting a feeling of nausea, or you get some goosebumps or some illness issues, or a wave of an emotion when you walk by someone, that's just that psychic connection, right?
Right.
So that's a big modality. And you use this modality a lot, well, we both do, for paranormal work when we're walking into a building, right?
Right.
I mean, how often are you assessing a space?
A lot.
Not right. So you're assessing the person, you're assessing the building. So these are all just examples of the ways in which it's psychic. So that is the psychic modality. Now, the second modality is that of mediumship. And that's, of course, where we're now moving it kind of, I'm going to call to a different dimension, so to speak, right? We're talking with spirits. We're talking about with discarnate. And often we associate that with loved ones, but that can be very limiting. There's a lot of other spiritual beings that are out there that we can connect with, whether you call it guides, angels, master teachers, whatever it is. And here's a topic that I'll let you address, because I struggle with that. But these non-departed beings from other dimensions, dare I use the term aliens?
I know, right? That's just scary topic on this show.
But is it really mediumship per se, or is it more just a psychic telepathic connection? I think that's where we get into the debates of where does one dimension begin and another dimension end.
Right. I think it's really more it's telepathy. But then is mediumship also telepathy?
Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It's mind-to-mind connection. The question is whose mind are you connecting with? We label it, right?
So, yeah. I feel like it's more telepathy than anything, which is still a psychic mode, right?
But a lot of people would label that as mediumship because they feel like they're connecting with something that's not in the physical dimension in front of them.
Well,
So they
it
may
can feel like
connect that
and I
in
feel
terms of a
like
mediumship.
angels, there's a real fine line because I don't feel like they're not human. So
Well, that's a good way to put it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. So have you had communication with different beings?
Yes.
As
you mean like aliens? Yes.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what term to use for it, but yes, I guess that's the way we would categorize it. Some people say they're other star people, or from other planets and galaxies. That would be aliens.
I affectionately refer to them as sky friends.
Oh, that's a great term. I love that.
Yeah, I don't trust aliens for anything. Nothing.
What's
No,
the
I don't.
difference? Hold on.
But I will say that I have one particular group that I've come to trust, and those are the Pleiadians. And they've been extremely helpful with many of our astral adventures, and even with, kind of just understanding, I guess, how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten really good validation for some of the things that they've said, and
mm-hmm.
The information that we've gotten and stuff. Like, so I can't deny it. It's to that point where it's like I can't say that it's not true.
Right.
But it works on a telepathic basis. As far as my understanding goes, is like they can astral just like we can astral, but their astral is better. So,
gotcha. Yeah.
So they have this like ability to tap in. They're basically human, but not. I mean, only in their evolution, I suppose. They're humanoid. Pleiadians look normal to me. Anyways. Basically like a normal person. I mean,
okay.
If I don't communicate with grays. I will say that. I mean, I have communicated with them.
Well, so what is a gray for someone like myself who does not do this type of?
Grays are the stereotypical gray aliens with the big eyes that
okay.
I think most people think about when we say aliens. That's probably number one that pops into your head.
And why do you not communicate with those?
Because I don't know who to trust in that group. I've heard that some of them are okay. I've heard that some of them are really bad. I never get any really good feelings about them, so I just stay away from them.
Okay.
I have had communication with them as far as telepathy goes, and like, they've kind of answered some of my questions, but there's no trust.
I gotcha. Well, and I've only had, and that's we're not getting into that, and I don't want to, shy people away from it, but I do know that some people have communications and connections with other dimensional beings, and it can become frightening and become scary because it happens at a telepathic level. It tends to get lumped into the mediumship category. I don't really, again, know whether it matters that we label it. It's really up to you how you define that. I had one experience where I was getting this information. It felt a little different, felt just a little different from connecting like with loved ones or guides or teachers. And I said, who is this? And I did get a response that they were a collective beings from another planet. And of course, that's just beyond my capacity at this point to kind of embrace. It's funny. I do all kinds of stuff, but that one just kind of pushed my buttons. And I haven't had that experience since. It was positive. It was not negative in any way. The connection was very loving. It was very uplifting. It was designed to help humanity. So it wasn't that the experience itself bothered me. I think it's my response to it that was difficult for me to embrace that. So I just prefer not to deal with it across the board. I think it brings up too much skepticism and questioning for me that I don't want to have to deal with. And I think that's the great thing is we need to realize we get the choice on who we want to connect with, right?
True. Yeah, definitely. I've made it very clear that I don't trust any of them. So,
Right. And, we got done doing our show on earthbound spirits and discerning that, and even evil and discerning that as well. So we do have that choice in mediumship.
Yeah. So I keep my interactions with them very limited. But I do have one kind of like go-to, pen pal that is,
someone that you've gained a relationship of trust.
Right. That I at least trust and know will have my back for even particular cases where we are dealing with something that's extraterrestrial that we don't know anything about.
And that's the standard for any psychic connection with a consciousness that is not in front of you, right? You have to have that discernment across the board. So we got a little off track, but we didn't, because I know that this is something that you do have experience with and like to talk about. So if anybody has more questions, certainly let us know and we can kind of address some of those questions. So we've got the mediumship modality, the psychic modality, and then there is the energetic modality. And that is for people who have an awareness of energy or energy systems, or they're able to manipulate energy. And this kind of falls into your wheelhouse as well. I'm starting to learn more about it. It seems like my guides are moving me in that direction. I've had some interesting experiences lately.
Oh, good.
But it's just basically the awareness, the shifting, and the manipulation of energy. And so this happens at the energetic level. And so that becomes one of those modalities. And we say, well, how would I do that? Let's take an example of how would you do something subtly with energy? And I think you gave a great example, even though you weren't doing it at the energetic level, is if somebody's really angry and you want to help them shift that energy, you just get very calm.
Right.
You're changing the environment by changing your energy, because what happens?
Response. Right.
Exactly, your response. Because if that person's angry and then you add anger to it, what just happened to the energy dynamic? 1 + 1 = 2, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You got double anger. But if you can sit here in this energetic aspect and go, wow, boy, and then you can just USA, right?
Right. That's
calm. Peace.
The transmutation right there.
Right. So you're taking one, and maybe depending on how well, maybe it's 1 - 1, and you can neutralize the environment. More than likely, it might be 1 - 1/2 or 1 - 1/4. But the point is you're shifting that dynamic at the energetic level. You don't have to do that in an obvious, I'm going to heal you. This can be a very, very subtle process that takes place that benefits you and the person that you're working with. Kids are a great example, right? I don't have any, but I can imagine if you're good at it, it might make a difference. Do you find that works? Do you find, so for those who don't know, you have a special needs child, and you have to be very attuned to his energy.
Yes.
So do you find that this energetic, because he won't understand what you're doing. Have you ever done this with him? And how has that worked?
That's a great question. I find that with him, his energy can be all over the place. So when I'm trying to help him, it's like, I have to do that transmutation thing where it's like I'm almost trying to pull whatever negative is on him and then transmuting it back into light and back into his auric field. What you just talked about is so true. So like if he comes at me with an attitude and I come right back at him with an attitude, it's just
a 1 + 1
the attitude. So I have to really navigate more so than with any other kind of kid. And maybe we should be doing this kind of thing anyways, instead of just projecting our anger back onto our children. But I really, he's taught me a lot about transmuting energy. Let's just put it that way. And about the fact that my own energy projection. So like, when I'm having a bad day or if I'm irritated, like I know he picks up on it and he'll get irritated just for the straight fact that I'm irritated. So learning how to keep my own emotions and energy in check, and learning how to help him do the same has been,
because he's not able to communicate that with you verbally. And so
not very well. I mean, he does have verbal communication, but it's very limited, and especially in an emotional way. If I, Trey, tell me how you feel, it's like, not so much. There's not a lot of explanation. Let's put it that way.
That's what I meant. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not really a skill that we're accustomed to doing, is this emotional energetic shifting. We tend to become defensive. We tend to we tend to absorb and take in what's coming at us.
I'm probably the worst too. I mean,
I've had to really work at that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I really tend to match people. So it's like, if you come at me, I'm coming at you. Like, and I don't even know why. Like, you just, it's like all of a sudden you have an attitude. Well, I have an attitude.
But I think that that's very, and sensitive people have to kind of ward against that, right? And some people will internalize that and then become that emotion. And then other people will reflect that back out, I think. And so I think you and I are more reflectors. I'm the same way. It's like, if you come at me, sometimes I'll come back at you, and then other times I'll really internalize that. So it kind of depends on the circumstance. Again, we're kind of getting into that energetic side of, I don't want to get too off topic.
And I think the more that you practice the latter, as far as like not reacting to their exact and pulling it back, you'll win every time, because when you let your emotions get the better of you, you're not thinking clearly.
My newsletter, it's funny, we're talking about this. My newsletter that went out this past week actually has an exercise that we received in Development Circle for how to start doing this. And it was all about harmonizing energies. So I put part 1 of the exercise in the past newsletter this week.
Cool.
About how we can start doing this and training ourselves, and why it's relevant, not just for intuitive awareness, but just in human relationships all the way around. And this is a perfect example of why.
Yes.
It's like you said, it's about being able to, they use the term harmonizing, but transmuting is pretty much the same thing. I mean, you're trying to balance that out. So that's the third modality, right? As far as I'm concerned, those are the 3. There's the energetic, there's the psychic, and there's the mediumship. But I think the catchy thing about all of this is all 3 of them are psi-based functions. All of them happen at the psychic level, and people get confused. Well, is mediumship psychic? Well, yes, but not all mediums are psychics. And then people say, well, I'm an energy worker, but I'm not psychic. I'm like, well, you're not a psychic, but you're using the psychic process. Energy is completely a psychic process. 100%.
I think that's why I've just tried so hard to just stay away from labels, because
thank you for making my point.
It's like when I had somebody ask me, well, I need you to, print out your bio and blah, 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 and give me your picture. And when I was like, all of a sudden I was in a panic, like trying to make this bio, because I'm like,
absolutely.
what am I? What do I do?
Absolutely. Oh, you're so making my point. You're so making my point. And really, this was the point that Spirit made with me about a year ago. And I don't want to say I'm finally getting it, but I'm moving more and more away from, it's like I hate a label, but sometimes people like it. And that's part of the reason I just say medium and spiritual messenger. And here's what I do, because all of these functions are psychic, intuitive, right? Whatever you want to call it. All of them are about receiving information that's beyond our normal processing. So it's all just awareness.
Right. And
that's it.
Are you receiving it?
And how are you receiving it? Or where is it coming from?
Applying it.
Yeah. Right. And how are you applying it? Thank you. Again, making my point. It's nothing more than awareness. And so we need to get beyond this fact of thinking, oh, it's a medium and I can do this and I can do that, but I can't, and you and this and this. And no, we all have awareness. Every single one of us have awareness. What you're aware of and how you will use it is the only thing that's different. Period. Yeah. Because we all have different skills.
If you don't have awareness that you have this ability to begin with, then you won't be using it. And, I think a lot of times we don't understand how they are used. So we tend to blow it off like it's just a hunch, like I said, or a gut feeling, however you want to label it.
Right.
But the more that you are aware of these things and embrace them, the more they start to happen and appear in your life too.
Right.
It's the psychic muscle, right?
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know, every
It's
time
that
you
intuitiveness, it's that openness, it's the allowing, which is huge. And we hear all of these things, and
yes.
people just don't want to, well, what does that mean? I want to do remote viewing, or I want to do telepathy, or I want to do this. As a matter of fact, in the session last week, someone said, well, is that clairvoyance or is that precognition? And I said, why does it matter? Why does it matter? Was the information valid? Yes. Did it help you? Yes. Then who cares what you call it?
That's true.
I
Yeah.
mean, yes, we want to have a foundation, right? I think that we do need to understand some basic, I think understanding and taking some parapsychology was really helpful. Having labels and terms can help people understand it if we want to explain it and do some educating. But ultimately, you had the awareness, you had the insight, it had relevance. I think source is important. We do want to be able to discern. We do want to be careful about that. But at the same time, it had relevance. So let's get out of the box. And that's what
Right.
spirit was trying to kind of say with me. Let's get out of labeling it, because you start compartmentalizing everything. Well, this experience is over here, and this experience is over here, and this experience is over here. And the next thing you know, you've got all these little blocks and you don't know where to focus. You focus on awareness. You
Right.
focus on the big picture.
I think it kind of reminds me about how I came into astral to begin with, where I mean, I didn't really have an understanding of what it was, let alone how to use it. Um, and it kind of sounded intimidating and like, why
Mm-hmm.
would I need to do that? Or why would I
Mm-hmm.
even want to try to do that?
Right.
Because it seems so out of my league or something like, oh no, I'm just a
Mm-hmm.
medium. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
a medium. I just talk to dead people.
And you're
And
limiting yourself right there. You're limiting
right.
yourself, and you're limiting your awareness and your service to others.
Right. So it wasn't until I kind of figured out that I was already kind of remote viewing
Mm-hmm.
things that I realized, oh, it is not as hard as you think. And it's actually way easier than I thought. And I actually turned out to be kind of a natural at it. So who knew?
And
Because in
didn't
the
you? Oh,
beginning, I would have thought, no way, that was not for me. I was happy to just be a medium with my label as medium, you know?
because it was comfortable.
Yeah. So,
But didn't you also say then too, what was really interesting is then you had this connection between the fact that healing was very similar to the astral work that you were doing, and you were kind of being led down this path of healing a little bit. So again,
yeah,
your awareness started shifting
I know. It's
without
so
you having
funny.
to focus on it.
Yeah, because I also never identified as a healer. And I say that with a laugh because I guess I never realized that I've been healing this whole time. I've been healing spaces, healing people, um, without really registering it as that. It's an energetic healing, yes, but it wasn't, I haven't taken any Reiki courses. I wasn't Reiki trained. So I was like, I'm not a healer.
Right.
Um, but when we do these things and we do them for other people and we remove these like negative layers or whatever it is, that is healing. That helps
Mm-hmm.
people. So,
We were just talking about transmuting someone's energy. That
yeah,
is a healing process, right?
right,
If you were taking someone from a very angry, or let's say a grieving or a frustrated or anxiety ridden state, by you simply standing next to them and being in a different aura, we know the auras blend automatically whenever we're
right.
next to someone or around someone, or we have a positive intention for that person. You're creating a healing experience, even though you might not identify yourself as a
I
healer.
know, I know. So it's just like there's, you know, like if someone tells you you're a healer and you're like, I'm not a healer, but you don't realize that, like, my mom is like this, right? Hi, mom.
Yeah. Do we need to cut that out? You want to make sure
No,
you're
no, no,
out
no.
your mom on a video.
Seriously, I'm calling my mom out. She's a healer, like naturally. She's drawn to the medical field. She's drawn to all kinds of things that, natural remedies and staying healthy and all these things. but she doesn't see herself as like a healer or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like
that's because again, she's probably got this concept in her mind of what it means to be a healer.
Right. But literally, and I told another friend this, you don't have to quit your day job to become a healer. You could literally be healing someone just by your presence, just by being there.
Thank you. You're making the point. Exactly. Right.
Holding space,
holding space, harmonizing the energy based on how you handle yourself.
Yes. So it's not something that has to be, like, you don't have to try hard. That's the thing, is like, you really don't have to try hard. You just have to be aware of what you already have, what you're already doing.
I think you do have to become practiced at it and intentional.
But that's what I mean. You have to at least become aware of the situation to begin with. Okay, maybe I do have some sort of natural healing ability.
Awareness,
I don't know
right?
Even
that's
what that means.
Awareness.
Right. Awareness. I don't know what that means, but I know that I do have an effect on people, or I can have an effect on people, a positive effect on people.
Right.
I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I can be aware of it now. And then when I get presented an opportunity to do it, it'll
grow, or it'll evolve, or you'll come up with a label that works for you. Right. It doesn't have to be that traditional healer. You bring up a good point. And the funny thing is when I'm doing a session with someone, or if I connect with someone, to intentionally read for them, right, to intentionally connect with them, I will tend to say to people, wow, you just have this crazy healer energy. And I can't tell you how many times people go, I do. Why am I a healer? And I'm like, and what I really mean, and I think I need to change my vocabulary here, is what I really mean is your energy system is so powerful. It has this huge ability to transmute, shift, and alter other people's energy. Yes. How you do that, what label you give it, is up to you. It has numerous applications. And that's kind of what this show is about today, is again, getting out of the box. So we're kind of harping a little bit about energetic, but I think it's really important because people truly dismiss this modality as really being the person who puts you on a table and does some mumbo jumbo over your body.
It doesn't have to be like that.
That's the only way you're a healer. And that's just so not the case. It is an option, but there are lots of other ways in which that can be done.
Yeah.
You can also do it for yourself. And that's the thing. We don't think that, I need to go see a healer. Have you thought about the fact that you can actually do this for yourself? So anyway,
that's actually the best way to mindset. It's actually the best way to practice too, is to try to practice on yourself.
Doing it with yourself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think too, you have to have a desire for something. I do think that the modalities that we're going to utilize are going to reflect who we are as people. What is it that's going to interest you? I find doing this for other people, I love it. People are like, oh, aren't you scared? I'm like, sometimes I get nervous because something's new, but I still love this. Mm-hmm. If it's not for you, you can find ways that you do love it. How you want to apply it will be different for everyone.
Right. Because like you said, you don't have to be on the medicine table. You don't have to be making tinctures so
get out of the box. It's good to know the modalities. It's good to understand these avenues of use and start taking a look at this broader picture. Get out of the psychic, tarot, medium, healer mindset and start seeing it in a bigger picture. Okay.
Absolutely.
So the last part that I'm going to talk about really briefly here that we wanted to kind of cover is practical applications. And again, we just kind of got done mentioning this. This is going to really vary based on who you are as a person. It should fit your lifestyle. It should fit your personal interest. I remember, I'll give an example of a lifestyle. Because you need to stay home for childcare related issues, it was really difficult for you to get out or to have this structured time. And I remember you saying, I don't know how I'm going to do this work. I don't know how I'm going to do this work. But it revealed itself to you and you found a way to do the work that fit your lifestyle.
So true.
Can you talk about that just briefly to give people kind of some clarity on what I'm expressing here?
Yeah. I mean, I guess you're just kind of referring to when I started to open and become more into the psychic world and wanting to get out there, but really being limited on how I could help people because I
because
didn't
of your
have
lifestyle, right?
Right. And I think spirit has a way of just throwing things into your lap that you don't really realize is going to be so profound on later on in the future. And astral was one of those things. So, you know, when I kind of figured out that I could clear spaces remotely and
it fit your lifestyle.
Yeah, it's just, well, what the heck was I thinking? Like, you know, I don't ever have to leave. That's wonderful. But no.
And you embraced it. That was the other thing, right? You were willing to embrace it. And then it evolved into fitting your life and being
right.
Something
And
really
it really did. And man, so many things have come from astral. So it's really been a blessing. It's shown me kind of it was a little bit of law of attraction there too, where it was like, you know, I don't know how this is going to work in my life, but I know that I want this in my life. So, and then all of a sudden,
that's a good point as well, because we do want to embrace the awareness. We do want to welcome it. And I think we need to welcome the experiences in whatever way they happen, because I think you're right that we kind of get guided down this path when we're embracing it. What's going to be, what you're natural at is going to come forward. And I think you're also right that spirit will bring into our lives that which we need.
Yeah, so the point is I wasn't even thinking about astral either. And that's the other thing is like, I never even thought that I could do that. To me, it sounded like, you know, jump in the deep end of the pool before you know how to swim. But no, it wasn't that bad because I did have, you know, mediumship and being psychic in my bag already. So it wasn't totally the deep end, but it wasn't something that I considered in the past. And if I had just been stuck on, oh, I have to do it this certain way and I have to give readings this particular way and this is how it has to look, I'd be really frustrated right now.
Absolutely. And that's the part of that I kind of wanted to make is let go of how you think it needs to be. And I'm guilty of that. I cannot tell you, I would not be where I am today if I hadn't struggled so hard with trying to make it be the way I wanted it to be. No, I want to be
this and in the time. I want it now.
And I want it now. Yeah. So you know, it's like I wanted to be a medium, and this was the only way I was going to be a medium, and blah 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 blah. And looking back at where I was back then, and realizing why it wasn't working was because spirit was like, "Hey, dummy, we've got all this other stuff that you're going to be better at. Let's go here and let's go do this." So I am a medium, but it's so much broader than I had ever considered it for myself. And then just 3 weeks ago, I got asked, yes, we're going to start bringing past lives into your sessions. And I went, oh God, really?
Ooh, that's cool.
No, because I hate being woo-woo.
Oh my God, you're so terrible.
I hate being woo-woo. So I was like, oh gosh, you're asking me to be woo-woo. But I've learned, okay, whatever you think is best.
Do you want to hear what I have to say about past lives real quick?
Go, sure.
I will
tangenting?
Say, right? I will say that every past life that I've kind of looked at or reviewed, there's always some lesson in it. So even though it seems really silly woo-woo, like does it really matter that I was this person? Well, not exactly as much as it matters what the lesson.
Absolutely. And you are right. And that was part of why I embraced it, because I've had some past life awareness throughout my lives as well. 3 especially that correlate to this life very, very highly. And so what I've learned from that has been priceless. So regardless of whether you believe in the past life or whether or not it's just this story that we create that helps us process information, it still has value. It still has learning and healing and application to it. So I completely agree. The past life stuff, I thought, okay, I'm going to embrace it. So I had 2 sessions last week where it actually came up. And I went, here we go. Here we go. I was nervous. I was scared because I hadn't done it before. I knew I was
Yeah.
supposed to embrace it. And I wasn't sure if either of the sitters was going to embrace it because you don't know how people are going to respond. Some people believe
Well,
in
you
it.
can't
Some people do.
validate it. So
You
you're
can't
kind of just,
valid. Well, you can and you can't. So
well, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
just very briefly, then obviously not violating client confidentiality, was it made sense to both people. It related to current behaviors. It related to how they respond to things in this life. There were some aha moments. There were some
Mhm.
tears. There was some awareness and some recognition there that was relevant and offered insight. That's all that mattered. The life wasn't designed to be, oh, look at me, I did this and this and this. No, it's designed for healing, for transformation, for
Right.
awareness, for
Right.
understanding. That
Hmm.
was the relevance of it. So it ended up being very positive in both cases. Both people were very open to it. Thank you, Spirit,
Good.
right?
Yes.
So I guess the point of the practical applications here is it does need to fit your lifestyle. It does need to fit your personal interest. But also don't box it in and be willing to grow and expand and recognize that there's probably something beneficial there for you if something comes up, and to kind of look at it from that perspective as opposed to, I don't want that, or that's not right. Just kind of be open because you don't know where it's going to take you. And I
Right.
think we've both given some examples of that. Um, your awareness should always support your dreams and your goals, and it will also support your life purpose. If you feel like you know what your life purpose is, then use your awareness to drive that purpose even further home. If you don't know what your life purpose is, there's nothing better than awareness to take you there,
I figure it out.
to
No, I'm
help
just
you
kidding.
figure it out. There's so many people that shut it off because they think it's just, well, I don't want to do readings for people, so why do I need that? You are completely missing the boat.
You know,
Completely missing the boat.
every reading that I do for other people, I always learn something about myself. Doesn't fail.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I'm not saying, I don't want people to feel like, oh, well, I have to do a reading though. Again, the point of this is that we talked early on about the personal guidance that we
Right.
get, the personal, this is coming up,
Well, and your guides
why
won't,
don't you try
you
this?
don't have to do anything. That's the other thing. You don't have to. Your guides never say that
That's
you do.
right. It's
But once
choice.
you're aware of it and you start to implement it into your
Mhm.
life, I think that you do start to see more blessings, and you do start to see
Right.
this like snowball effect of the manifestation of the good that you're trying to
Right.
create.
Because remember,
Right.
they asked me, are you willing to accept doing the past life in the sessions? I was asked.
Right.
I was informed that it was coming up, not on my radar, not something I would choose to put in my wheelhouse willingly. I actually had to kind of go through a little therapy session with a friend to kind of walk me through being willing to embrace this. But
Oh my God.
so again, it wasn't something that I was looking for, but I embraced it because I trust my spiritual team isn't going to walk me down a dark path. And I was able to help two people last week by evaluating that. What a gift. What a
I think
gift.
the coolest thing about past lives is when they get validated by two different psychics or two different mediums, meaning one
Absolutely. Right.
one
Sure,
person
sure, sure.
gives
Right.
you,
Yeah.
the little thing, and you can kind of take it with a grain of salt, and you're like,
Mhm.
yeah, whatever, maybe it was, maybe it
And then it
wasn't.
comes up again and you go, oh, that's
But
interesting.
then when it comes up, yeah, again with a completely different person, and you're like, okay, now that's weird.
Yeah.
Now I don't know.
Yeah. So the point of all of this is just understand that it has very real world uses and it's designed to fit who you are. You do not have to change to allow awareness to come into your life. But when you do, your awareness will change you, but for the better. That's the whole point.
Right.
So get out of those mindsets that are limiting or frightening. Just embrace the awareness in whatever format it comes and follow where the path goes. Use it for yourself and for the benefit of others. And that awareness will continue to support you because you're serving, right? At that point, your service. There was a lesson that came up that talked about the more you serve, the more your awareness is supported because you're in service.
Right.
The more awareness you have, the better you can serve. And then you serve more, and then your awareness expands. I have found that that has been the biggest contributor to growing and expanding my awareness, is being in service to my own self, my own personal growth, being dedicated to my growth and expansion, and being dedicated to the growth and expansion in others, or the healing, because I still consider that growth and expansion, right? When we heal, it's an expansive state. And then also problem solving. I kind of wanted to pop that in there because that's still growth and expansion, but we're helping people solve problems or become aware.
Well, problem solving is huge. I mean, in finding solutions via psychic information.
Because you can't expand or move forward if you're stuck on a situation.
I mean, in fact, there have been some cases that we had to channel the solution because we didn't know how to fix it. So once we channeled that solution and we applied it, it helped.
Constantly asking for problem solving. What about this? I don't understand this. How do I do that? How do I do this? How do I do that? And it's like, then if they help you move into that problem solving mode, then we're not just being given the expansion growth aspect, but it's like, oh.
It can be even something internal. I do it all the time because I get stuck on the anger about society mode. And it's like, man, sometimes it's just like, how do you get past that, where we don't have any like actual control over other people. So
that's a big part of what my sessions are. And I tell people, look, I'm a medium, but when you come to me, it's all going to be about problem solving, expansion, growth, awareness. That's it. That's what I do. Sometimes a loved one comes in and that's the person that's doing the talking. Sometimes it's your team. Sometimes it's a combo. It's almost always a combo actually, and then sometimes a loved one doesn't come through. It's just straight from your team. It's problem solving. It's the awareness and it's the growth. So we know that this applies in human relations. And I just very quickly, as we start wrapping this up, I wanted to give some other examples of how we can use this expanded awareness. First of all, it can be used in business. Big business hires what they call business intuitives all the time to help them look at trends, to help them look at how people feel about things. What's the stock market going to do? It's not advertised, but they pay money for business intuitives. Big bucks, big bucks for good
I've heard that. I'm like, why don't I have some high paying job that does that?
Because again, we don't want to talk about this. It's one of those things that it's like, more people are than not kind of embrace it, but at the same time, it's not mainstream and we don't want to talk about it. So business is a big one. How can you help people expand their businesses? And there's one lady I know that she actually helps people with their money using her awareness. Again, these are not predictions. These are insights to help people expand or improve business. We've already talked about how you can do this through health, healing, and medicine, right? We've given the example of nurses. If you're someone that does nutrition, or I sometimes get medical information for people, especially related to food or nutrients that can help them improve. So there's a big plus.
Stones.
What's that? Stones.
Stones. I do. I get a lot of intuitive information that way, where I'll be like, I will see the stone, or I'll hear, and then like, they need this, or they need that, or whatever.
Right. So law enforcement and search and rescue, right? So we talk about people who look for criminals or do crime scene assessment, walking into homes, assessing what happened in the house. Dowsing on maps, seeing if they can't find where a body is located, and that kind of a search and rescue. Pam Coronado is one of the better psychic detectives that out there. I've seen some videos where like they handed her a hairbrush and she's able to connect with the person who was murdered and start getting facts and evidence. So again, here's another real world practical application for this type of awareness that's more than just, I want to do a reading, right? We can look at archaeology and history, finding things, gaining facts or insights. Where do we need to go in order to find out more about this battle or this experience or what this person went through. Finding bones, right? There's that kind of that dowsing aspect. But again, it's this awareness. Where are you resonating? Where are you vibrating? So awareness, okay? Farming, weather, affecting plants, proven experiments over and over again through parapsychology that human energy systems can affect healing, but also affect plants. Some people say they can affect weather. There's been some studies done about, it's rare, but there have been some studies showing that there are people that have some of those abilities. We look at shamans and indigenous cultures who were able to tap into what the weather was going to do. So they knew when to plant, when to harvest. It's connection with nature, right? So,
well, you could be channeling. It's like channeling the elements or something.
Exactly, channeling nature, right? So has some very real world applications there as well. So if you want to grow, have a bigger harvest, I know some people that have done energy with their plants and they get bigger harvests. So
yeah,
it has unusual applications, but they can be far reaching. We know that it can be done in science and in gaining knowledge. If you're stuck on a particular scientific experiment and you want some insights or some assistance or some awareness, we know that Tesla and even Einstein or other scientists would say that sometimes ideas came to them and they didn't know where they came from. They just would either wake up or have this vision. It was a sense of awareness. We don't have to talk about where it came from, but these are practical applications.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We know that it happens in the arts, creative writing, music, right? Painting.
Absolutely.
How many people create from a place of this otherworldly space? I very much do the writing aspect. You hear musicians do this. You hear dancers and artists. Your awareness can expand even something in the creative realm as well. And then social change is another one, right? How can we be more aware of the politics of the day? How can we be more aware of what we can better do to serve our community, right? If we're in an alternative community or a minority community, open yourself up to saying, what is the best move that I can do to serve my community? Or how can I support women? If this is your passion, let your awareness and spirit guide you to those answers. I promise you, they're going to be far more expanded and accurate than your own personal ego-based assessments. That's the point.
Yeah.
Our mind is limited. Expanded awareness is unlimited. That's where we get the answers from. And then you come back and you go, okay. And then you work what you've been given. That's our job.
Right.
The awareness comes from this greater space, this unknown space. It becomes known, and then we work it in the here and now. That's the manifestation. So those were some of my real world applications that don't have anything to, they help people and they help society, but they're not that box. I'm going to do a reading today. None of those were about readings. Not one.
Right.
Not one.
That's why I think, it's underrated that.
Absolutely.
You can be using it for multiple things, not just hoity-toity readings or,
right. Yeah. That's just the obvious way that we see them. That's the overt.
Yes.
And it has benefit. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's just so many other ways to use it.
Right.
So I hope you guys have enjoyed the show today and got a real good feel for why we need to take it outside of the box, embrace the expanded awareness in whatever form it comes for you, and realize the many different ways that you can use this for helping yourself, for helping others, for helping society, and really making a positive difference in the world. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, be sure and let us know either through an email. Our contact information is down below, as well as my newsletter sign-up form. We can always come back on a video and answer your questions there or get to you personally. So thank you. Do you have any closing comments before we go?
I was just going to say, don't be intimidated by the words psychic and stuff like that.
Let go of the label.
Yeah, let's let go of the label.
Yep. Let go of the
That's
label,
it.
or find a label that works for you. I think that's the other thing too. If intuition makes you feel better, if a gut hunch makes you feel better, if the word
Right.
awareness makes you feel better, which I think is why my guide started telling me, let's start talking about this in terms of awareness, because it becomes a
Mhm.
little easier to embrace. I just
Right.
have an awareness, or I have a knowing,
Right.
um,
Because
a
that's
spiritual
really
connection,
what it is.
if
Yeah.
you want to call it a spiritual connection. Yeah. Good point. Anything else?
No.
Awesome. Okay. So thanks, guys, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.